Hello everybody and welcome to our very first breakdown video. Behind me is FL Studio, which is the program that I use to make music, and we're going to be checking out our beat that we used in our introductory video, which I posted a couple days ago. If you haven't checked that out, I would recommend you go check it out. It's 7 in the morning right now, but that is no matter to me because we are going to be checking out this song, which clocks in at around 9 minutes and is in C major. It's in allegro tempo, 142.25 to be exact. The reason it's that is because I felt that 142 was too slow and 142 and a half was too fast. So 142 and a quarter it was. Anyways, C major, which is a very, very positive and uplifting scale, was my choice because I wanted to have something positive and uplifting. And I think C major does the best job at that. So this song is basically just me dinking around in C major with a bunch of different instruments and timbres for fun, for background music. So we're going to get right into it, and we're going to jump right in, look at all the tracks, and see what we're going to get going with this. It's going to be super casual, so yeah, nothing crazy at all. Alright, I now exist in this corner of the screen, that way I can show you guys the entirety of FL Studio. I've organized everything here, which I'm actually really bad at, so this is new for me. But I have all of my chords purple, my basses are blue, my drums are red, little tiny bits of melody that only last a few measures, those are green, and then the actual leads, like the actual melodies that I put in, I only have 2 of them. But they're yellow, and then there's this little harmony bit that's orange, and then there's this whole ending bit, which is just one piano. And I colored it aqua because I felt it deserved its own color, because it is its own color. Anyways, let's get into our first instrument here. When we first hear the song, we get opened up with this very mighty brass instrument with these triumphant chords, and I will talk about those now. So the instrument is in Arc Sun Cityscape in Flex, and it's called 70s Bounce, and it has a timbre really similar to a brass instrument like a trumpet or a trombone. So it's very triumphant. Even more so, we are combining a triumphant chord with it. What I did is I took the G major chord, just a really simple G major, and went down a fifth from the root note, which is C, which really helps define the majorness of that chord. So it turns it into a C major chord, but it's more of an implied C major chord because I'm not playing the E note that a C major chord would actually get. I'm actually just playing the stacked major chord of C's fifth, G. So it's this really triumphant chord. I hope that made any sense at all. So when you first play the song, for the first few measures, maybe for the first measure, you might guess that the song is being played like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. But instead, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So basically what's happening is that second chord is coming in right after the third beat. So it's coming in at the and after 3. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And messed up a little bit there, but hopefully that makes sense. So it's kind of creating this offbeat rhythm that you kind of have to listen to it a couple times for it to make sense. But once you listen to this little arpeggiated chord, that's when you kind of get an established rhythm because those are eighth notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right up around here is where we introduce our bass and our lead. So we'll talk about the bass first because the bass and the chords go hand in hand. So we'll play these two together. So we start off with C, go up to G a little bit, go to the fourth of F, go up fifth by C, and then go up a second, and then down a fifth. So it's this really, really simple progression. So really what it is, the chord progression is just a 1-4 chord progression, which means it's taking its first its root, which is C major, and then going up a fourth, which is F major. In this case, it's actually F Lydian because of the B note, right? So you have F and B. F and B are tritones. So tritones are considered really, really dissonant. They want to be resolved, right? So I wouldn't say that F and B really, really need to go to C, but they would really, really like to. So I kind of use that to my advantage. That way I can create this chord progression that is really similar to breathing. And that's why I'm really a fan of these 1-4 chord progressions, or these 2-4 chord, or just these 2 chord progressions where only 2 chords are happening throughout the entire song, because I feel as though it represents breathing, kind of a natural fundamental that we've been living with our entire life. Breathing, you know? You are exhaling C major, you know? It's feeling good. It's feeling so good. You're just exhaling C major and then inhaling F major for it to get resolved to C, and then you exhale again, right? And now it's playing. And of course, it's not as serene and, you know, slow to breathe to this song, but that kind of chord progression still is a subconscious click in your brain that, hey, I've kind of heard this before. I've seen this before. This rhythm is something I can get down to with the chords. But then we get into the actual rhythm, and it's much more synthy, much more upbeat, much more club dancey. So we'll get a little bit more into it. And that's where we get into our first lead, which is called bubblegum lead. And it is inspired by the bubblegum pop genre, or the bubblegum bass genre. So they've got some really defined leads that I wouldn't necessarily sing to, but they are very good nonetheless. So we'll check this lead out. Just listen to it for a little bit. Get the piano roll here. That way you guys can see all the little notes here, and I'll just kind of explain it as it goes. So this is just me dinking around with some keyboard sound I found on Morphine called Filter Sync. So go check it out. So those first 4 measures of the intro are just kind of me going up and down, and on the 5th measure and the 7th measure, I repeat the motif. And then we get set up for the next part of that melody, where we take a motif and just kind of go down. So that we go down, and then we go down again, and then we go down again. And then we kind of get some really random notes going in here. Staying in the key of C major, not really going far out. No non-diatonic notes yet, but we're just chilling right over here. And in these last little notes right over here, the 15th through the 16th measure, we have the piano harmony. So this harmony is designed to just be played in the background and supports the melody in some kind of strange ways. So these are the chords for this piano melody and features some non-diatonic notes. The most notable being F sharp, and I think it's actually the only non-diatonic note. So non-diatonic means notes that are outside of the song's key. So the song's key is C major. I don't know what. Okay, we have the piano rolled up. So C major. You know, all of the notes that wouldn't be in C major are basically all the flats, right? So whenever we introduce one of those, it's really, really dissonant, or it can sound really, really great depending on how we use it. In this case, it's more of we're just kind of moving around, kind of throwing a little bit of F sharp spice into the mix. So this is what the chords sound like on their own. I forgot to mention the drums that we're using, and it's probably okay that I didn't mention the drums because the drums are super, super, super simple. They are FPC drums. It is 707. I called it 707 because why not? And it's literally just... yeah, super, super, super simple. But 707 is just so, like, so full, so meaty, you know? Like, it's got some really great frequencies to it. I kind of boosted the bass a little bit. That way I could get the kick drum a little bit more oomph. I got rid of this frequency right here. I'm not quite sure why, but I kept everything about the same. Took a little bit of the high end off, but it's this really, even the snare, you know? And then we get into this part where we get some little bells here. And these bells are analog bells, I believe, in the, they're called Juno bells. Juno bells in Semir Synthwave. So go check it out in Flex. And it features F sharp yet again. So F sharp is kind of a little character in this song that I should probably talk about more, because I alluded to it when we were looking at the piano harmony. So F sharp is the farthest away from C and is C's tritone. So if I took the circle of fifths and that F sharp is the same distance away as if I went down the circle of fifths. Right? So F sharp is dissonant in the C language, but it can also be very consonant and very nice sounding when you stack all those fifths, thus a Lydian chord. So that's kind of what we're hearing with that final F chord, which is just kind of this big stacked chord, right? Or that's what it is. Right? So when we stack fifths like that, it's really, really bright sounding, because if you hadn't known, fifths appear in nature, and they are the, I guess, the second most prominent harmonic, second only to the octave, which everybody knows the octave, right? But the fifth is even more so than that. It's very bright sounding, so I tried to use that as much as possible in this song. Is fifths and fourths, and using those two things in this song to try to convey some emotion. Though not a lot of emotion is being conveyed with the song because it's a background track. But hey, still, you know. And then we also got some hats down here. I have none of my own samples in here. All of this is stuff from FL Studio, so, and that's probably what it's going to be for a while. So don't be looking for a whole ton of samples just yet. All right, and then this part right over here, we have something called the angelic undertone. The angelic undertone is a pad where if you kind of just barely strike it, it makes a really, really soft sounding key, rather than holding it down and it kind of going like, you're just pressing it down repeatedly, as you can see on the piano roll, and you're gonna hear it sounds like a continuous pad, but it's me just going like this on the keyboard. I'm just basically just going like this, because that effect on that instrument in particular makes it sound really soft. Whereas if I were to hold it, it would be a bwah, aforementioned. And that's when we introduce the arpeggiated strings. So the arpeggiated strings, which we see right over here, go up this scale, much like the angelic undertones, where it's just a triad, so 3 notes. And let's see, what are those notes? They are A, B, and E for C major, and C, D, and G for F major. So basically what this track is doing is closing out the chord and defining the chord that the brass instrument had before. So if I actually go in here and place the brass instrument and then play it alongside the strings, the chord will basically be complete. Because basically what you're doing is you have the original sound as before, but then you're adding A, B, and E, so it's now this really bright sounding, chord, except it's being arpeggiated, so it's not all happening at the same time, but it's implied through the subconscious. You're listening to it, and all of these different notes in that scale, in that chord, are being played, but it's the same chord, just kind of sprung out in different locations, thus the arpeggiation and everything like that. I hope I am making any sense at all. I hope so. Also, with the introduction of the arp strings, we have one of our first little melodies here. We took a look at the bells beforehand, but we have this melody here which features D sharp, which is not used in the same way as F sharp in this song. It's just a bridge between D and E, as you can see here. So we'll listen to this little motif here. So this one is almost minor sounding. I would say it's more of an A minor motif than a C major motif. But, you know, they're the same key, theoretically speaking. So, well, they are. You can see it. Never mind. It's not a theory, it's a thing. A minor and C major are the same thing. Anyways, yeah. Kind of spices it up. Nothing too crazy. And then right here we get a few other things. We have the return of the bells in the 707, but then we have bass the second. And this is a really, I guess, a really synthy, there's like a lot of high ends going on here. So it's really chip tune like almost, but a little bit more analog-y than that. So it's not, you know, a square wave, but it's, you know, very synthy. And then we have the return of the chords, right? Nothing crazy. And then we have these hats return, and then that's when we get into our second part of the song here, which takes the song underwater, so to speak. So we'll play these measures and we'll listen to it. So it's probably easy to tell what's happening already, but basically I added this little reverse cymbal that kind of, you know, builds you up, and then it goes unreverse, and it has this little delay effect to it, so it's like a psh, 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 psh. Nailed it. Anyways, then we have this snare. It's called SFX Anvil. Go find it. It's in Flex, or not in Flex. It's in FL. It's somewhere in the folders, so go find it. It's kind of cool. But I added some reverb to it. That way it kind of sounds like one of those like underwater, you know, I don't know what they're called, but it's like a, I don't know, but it's underwater. Does that make sense? And it's also more underwater because we're actually putting filters on the drums and the hats. So we have the 808 toms, and everybody goes crazy for 808. The thing with 808 is that it's just so pure. So 808 is just really simple in its frequencies. Like how we looked at that bass frequency earlier before, how it's got some high end and it's really synthy. 808 is more simple and more sine wavy and more generalized and a lot more, what's the right word? I guess the right word is when something is really good at doing a lot of things. Jack of all trades, master of none. I don't know what that is. I can't think of the word. It'll come back to me. It will. So we have two different sets of drums, 808 toms that we showed off, and then we have this part right over here, which is just hats on delay. And the delay is panning left and right, just a ping pong delay. We have the angelic undertones also, and they're in a separate channel because the chord grows. So it starts off with the original chord that we had beforehand, that E minor and the A7 chord, I guess is what we'll call it. But then the chord builds up. Right? And with that whole build up is the sub bass. So the sub bass kind of establishes our rhythm and our key back again. So we have the subs coming in. And that's all we have is the pad, the bass, the snare, the drums, and then we introduce some gnarly hats. Also on the filter. So all of the high end from the drums is being taken off. That way it kind of feels closed off. And then we kind of slowly open that back up for this part where the beat just happens for a little bit. So we rearrange them for a little bit, and then we get into this part of the song right over here, which introduces our next track, which hasn't been heard before, and it's called quartal voicings. So a quartal voicing is a voicing or a chord made by fourths. So this right here is a piano that we have. And oh man, this piano sounds so good. So it's just a regular grand piano in flex, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it is. No, it's piano mix. Okay, cool. So piano mix has Yamaha, Steinway, and Boston pianos. I have Yamaha turned down a little bit. I'm not sure if that was automatically it, but I turned phaser and chorus up on this one, and it sounds so good. I don't know what it is. It just works really well. And I've used this kind of voicing in other projects before, and I wanted to use it in this one again. And fourths like this, just striking them on the quarter notes is so fun. And you basically, with this melody, are just going up, or are this harmony just going up and down fourths until you get into the F major 4 part of the song, where you instead of a fourth voicing, it's just like an A minor voicing, and then back up to fourths, and then back to A minor, and then back to fourths, and then a G major chord way at the end. That way we can tie the G major chord into our other G sus chord that we have. I'm pretty sure this is G sus. This would be G sus too. We have the bells come back a little bit, even with these new bell harmonics here. So we had this before where we heard the bells. G, C, G, C, A, D, A, and then that little ding 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 ding. Then we have this little chip tune lead here, which is very similar to the bubblegum lead, in which it kind of dances around the C major scale, but this one's a little bit more uniform, and you can see it a lot better here. So it's this very simple motif in which we go up and down, or I guess we go a little bit up and then down, and a little bit up and then down, kind of throughout the entirety of these 8 measures. So let's go ahead and listen to it. Back again, and then right here on the 189th measure, we'll hear basically we have that little melody come back with the piano, and it sounds really good with that lead melody that we just made with that little really square wave synth that we had before. So those two melodies are kind of communicating and passing is what's happening. So they're not like harmonic right next to each other, so it's not a direct harmony, but you know, they're different notes and they work together, which is what harmony is, but it's in a different way. You know, it's not in unison, it's more in passing, if that makes sense. And I think with that, we kind of covered a lot of the tracks, except for keys bass, which is in this part of the song where it is designed to be played right with the chordal voicing with the pianos like we had before. So if we play the keys bass, you'll see it's on quarter notes, just like that chordal voicing. And then if we play that. All right, and then the very ending of the song is the piano ending here, which kind of has this really nice sounding close grand piano from Flex, which I absolutely love. Very close, very homey. It's got a little bit more bass to it. It's more full-bodied. It's very meaty, which is a term I've used before in this video. But here's the piano. Right? Super. And then the strings and that little piano motif. Now we're getting super classical, you know? So we're slowing it down a lot. No more beats. At this point in the song, we have the piano melody come back, but at this point, it's just the piano. After a few measures, I didn't know how long the video was going to be, so I just kind of let it fade out super, super slowly into nothingness. It is just going off into wherever it wants to go now. As we start to slowly hear the song fade away, we are reminded of what once was. Chordal voicings, nonsense about F sharp, almost quitting the YouTube video because I felt as though I wasn't explaining myself very thoroughly, but also remembering that, hey, this is my first time doing this. And now we're thinking, slowly thinking into the abyss. And I think that's a good ending point. All right. Very, very nice. We got through the entire song. I'm going to be posting the song on the YouTube channel for you guys to listen to. I kind of want to get better at this and get faster at this. That way I can be making more of these faster and better and get some layering in. That's another thing I want to be doing, is I want to be layering tracks. As you can see, all of the tracks were just on their own. So very focused on instruments and timbre, which can be a good thing. But also, if I want some more sounds, I'm going to have to layer some too. So I'm going to be starting to work on that a little bit more. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully this made a little bit of sense. I'll be posting the song on the channel for you guys to listen to. And until next time, I hope you guys have such a fantastic day. Fuck.